Everything about the new school year felt daunting to Violet Harper. She was dressed in a crisp blouse with neatly pressed trousers and brand new flats that pinched her toes a little. In the quiet of the morning, she had left her small apartment, her heart thunderous with both anticipation and dread. After years of college, part-time work, and student teaching, this was finally her chance to lead a classroom of her own. She had yearned for this while also feeling unprepared for the reality of it. Yet here she was, walking toward the front doors of East Ridge Elementary, a warm wind stirring the edges of a stack of papers under her arm. She paused for a moment outside the school building. Pale morning light bathed the brick walls and wide windows, giving them a comforting glow. Each time a slight breeze passed under the large sycamore tree by the flagpole, the leaves rustled in a dull susurration, reminding her that this place was alive with possibilities. As she checked her watch for the 10th time that hour, a gentle wave of nausea flipped her stomach. She turned, took a breath, and steadied herself. She muttered a small prayer under her breath and whispered, "You've got this, Violet." Soon, she ventured in and was greeted by the hum of an early morning staff gathering. Custodians rushed down hallways with mops and brooms, ensuring every inch of the corridor was spotless. Office staff rummaged through paperwork, scanning lists of class schedules and bus rosters. Fellow teachers hastened in and out of the staff lounge, sipping coffee and cracking hopeful jokes about the year to come. It was a whirlwind of purposeful movement, yet every sound, the squeak of shoes, the rustling of paper, the low murmurs felt heightened to Violet in her nervous state. She took a deep breath and headed for her classroom. 3 large windows dominated the back wall, letting natural light flood in. Desks were arranged in neat clusters, a floral arrangement in the corner that Violet had brought in the day before, with a hopeful thought that it might soften an otherwise plain space. The faint scent of chalk dust and the crispness of dry erase markers combined to form the unmistakable perfume of school. She set her tote bag beside her sturdy new desk chair. The moment was finally here. Within an hour, children would fill her classroom, their young faces brimming with expectations she yearned to meet. In the final minutes of peace, Violet carefully laid out the name tags she had prepared the prior evening. Each sticker bore a child's name, some in bright blue marker, some in purple, and a few in green. She wanted something personal for them, a small gesture of welcome as they began a new grade. A part of her worried, though, would the quiet, reserved students prefer to avoid name stickers? Should she have let them pick their own colors? Her mind spiraled with doubt for a moment until she remembered a piece of advice she once got from a mentor teacher. Calm down. You will discover the best parts of teaching by diving in. A knock on the frame of her open door startled her. She turned around to see that it was Trinity Jones, a veteran teacher with more than 2 decades under her belt. Violet recognized her from orientation. Trinity's broad smile was kind, and her voice lilting with warmth. "Good morning," she greeted. "First day, huh?" Violet nodded, feeling a swell of both gratitude and anxiety. "Yes, but it feels more like the first day of my whole life," she admitted, offering a sheepish smile. Trinity laughed in a comforting, knowing way. "Take a deep breath. It's normal to be jittery. Over the years, you'll find routine, but that spark of excitement never fully goes away. It just changes shape. If you need anything, you can always come find me in room 2. Violet blinked back tears of relief, grateful to have a colleague who felt approachable. "Thank you so much," she managed, her voice slightly shaky. Trinity gave her a nod and left, presumably to make final preparations for her own class. Moments later, a bell chimed through the loudspeakers, signaling that the doors to the building would soon open to students. Violet found herself standing behind her desk, her hand resting on a small plush bulldog, the school's mascot. The plush toy was soft and worn from years of being handled by children. She had acquired it through a rummage sale at the local community center, thinking it would be a cute addition to her new classroom. Stroking its ear, she felt a tiny measure of solace. Perhaps it would serve as a silent reminder that though she had big shoes to fill, the community here had a warm heart worth counting on. Footsteps and chatter began to ascend in volume in the hallway. The first wave of students trickled in hesitantly, some shyly glancing at the name by the door to confirm they were in the right place. Others boldly marched toward the desks, eager to claim a seat. A dark-haired boy in an oversized hoodie came in first. He glanced at Violet with curious eyes before dropping his gaze. She smiled and handed him a name sticker. He gave a tiny nod, peeled the backing, and stuck it on the front of his shirt, promptly making his way to the far corner of the room. One by one, children filled in the seats. Some already appeared fast friends, chatting amiably, while others seemed to struggle with the newness of the environment. Just as Violet began to feel the energizing swirl of potential, a voice from the doorway made her heart skip. "Good morning, Miss Harper." She turned to see a girl with box braids crowned by colorful beads at the tips. "My best say, you new teacher? You kind like Miss Lowell?" Violet recognized the name. Miss Lowell was the previous third-grade teacher whose retirement had opened this opportunity for Violet. "I hope I can be as kind as her," Violet replied with genuine sincerity. "She was wonderful." The girl nodded, set her pink roller backpack against the wall, and immediately plopped into a chair near the front. Another child, a boy who looked tall for his age, joined her, greeting Violet formally before taking a seat. Within minutes, all seats were filled. Violet felt a surge of nervous adrenaline at this broad array of faces turned toward her, eyes wide. She cleared her throat, clasped her hands together, and said, "Good morning, everyone. My name is Ms. Harper, and I am so excited to be your teacher this year." A chorus of half-hearted good mornings followed, mixed with excited giggles and whispered side conversations. She introduced herself again, more slowly, asked them how they were doing, and invited them to share what they were most looking forward to in the new school year. Most answers were predictable: making new friends, going to recess, pizza day, or reading new books. A small voice in the back offered, having fun with teachers. That last one made Violet blush under her collar. Already she sensed the sweet innocence and genuine good cheer of these kids. The first day's schedule started with an introduction to the class rules, nothing too strict, just guidelines for respectful behavior. She led them in a simple welcome activity, writing their names, a drawing of one thing that made them happy, and one thing they wished to learn this year. Violet strolled around, offering small compliments. "That's a beautiful drawing of a soccer ball." "I love your creativity," or "That's a unique way to show the sunrise." Each time she saw a smile, something inside her loosened. She felt her earlier anxiety begin to recede, replaced by a gentle joy. Around mid-morning, the students lined up for the playground break. Violet watched them dash out into the sunny courtyard, chasing one another in a swirl of laughter. She breathed more freely. She'd survived the first 2 hours of the school day without any major mishap. In the quiet of the emptied classroom, she smoothed a few papers on her desk, took a moment to realign the pencils, and took a sip of tepid coffee from her travel mug. Though she had begun the day uneasy, there was a small but discernible shift happening. She felt more present, more at ease in her own skin. Her moment of tranquility was interrupted by a slight knock on the door. She looked up to see a boy, the same dark-haired one in the oversized hoodie. He stood in the threshold, staring at her from under his damp bangs. Perhaps he had come back to retrieve something or ask a question. "Ms. Harper," he began, speaking with more confidence than she anticipated, "I just wanted to say I like the name stickers. No one else has done that." He shrugged, lifting a small shoulder. "It's nice." Warmth bloomed behind Violet's eyes. She nodded and replied, "I'm glad you like them." "What's your name?" She'd recognized it from the roster but wanted him to say it himself. "Damon," he said in a quiet tone. "I appreciate you, Damon. Thank you for telling me." With that, he shifted on his feet, mumbled a goodbye, and darted off across the hallway to rejoin the rest of the kids. The encounter left Violet bewildered, yet touched. For the boy to have come back on his own volition, to speak even the slightest compliment, felt unusually bold. She suspected that he was in his own way trying to make her feel welcome. When recess ended, the children filed in with rosy cheeks and wide grins. A sense of relaxation filled the room. Violet began a short lesson on classroom routines, where to store completed assignments, how to walk in the hallway, and the expectation that each class member contribute to keeping the room clean. Afterward, they practiced reading out loud from a storybook that had been on the shelf. Across each cluster of desks, she saw pairs and trios gather in small huddles, the pages spread between them. She moved from group to group, hearing everything from giggles to hushed exclamations when they stumbled over a new word. Eventually, the noon bell chimed, alerting the students that it was time for lunch. Violet escorted them to the cafeteria entrance, reminding them to line up carefully on the painted yellow line. As they waved goodbye, she left them in the capable hands of the lunch monitors. Giving them a final wave, she turned down the corridor, contemplating her next moves with her precious half-hour break. She should probably head to the teacher's lounge, greet her colleagues, and gather her wits before the afternoon lessons. Upon reaching the lounge, she found a small group of teachers gathered around a round table. Among them was Trinity, the warm-hearted veteran teacher who had greeted her that morning. Trinity motioned her over. "Violet, come join us." The others turned around, offering welcoming smiles. "We were just talking about ways we get through the first day every year," another teacher said. "Care to share anything that's worked for you so far?" She swallowed, trying to keep her composure. "I'm still adjusting," she admitted, "but the class is... they're sweet. My main worry was that they wouldn't accept me, but I think we're doing okay so far." The group nodded, some sipping coffee, others munching bits of salad or leftover bagels. One spoke up. "You'll find that each class has its own culture, its own dynamic. The best thing you can do is be real with them. Kids can sense authenticity a mile away." Violet felt a deeper sense of belonging. She nodded graciously and soaked in every word. Soon, though, the lunch break ended, and they all scurried back to their rooms. Returning to her classroom, Violet found a small note taped to the whiteboard. Written in slightly wobbly handwriting were the words, "We're so glad you're here, Miss Harper." Underneath it were a collection of colored hearts, drawn with sweet sincerity, some bigger than others, the lines swirling in an attempt to make them symmetrical. Looking around, she tried to guess which one of the children might have been responsible for this thoughtful gesture. Her heart squeezed with affection. She carefully peeled the note off and placed it inside her desk drawer, thinking she might later display it somewhere more permanent. When the students filed back in, chatting excitedly after their lunch break, Violet attempted to keep her composure. However, she could not erase the beaming smile the note had given her. She welcomed them back, took attendance, and initiated a small writing exercise. She noticed that Damon in the back corner grinned quietly to himself each time she mentioned the day's goal. The girl with the braids, whose name was Lacey, sat closer now than she had earlier, almost as if she was claiming a safe space. The tall boy with a slight stutter, named Vicente, participated enthusiastically, raising his hand more times than any other student. To her surprise, after a short while, she felt so at ease that she started moving among the desks freely, offering friendly banter as she guided them. She chatted with a small group about their favorite books, another about their favorite singing stars, and even answered a question from a child about how it was weird to have a new teacher. She took that one gracefully, explaining that new things are often strange at first, but they can bring surprises that are fun or helpful. Each time she interacted, Violet sensed the invisible boundary between teacher and students begin to dissolve into something more collaborative, more humane. The latter portion of the day included a science demonstration, a simple exercise about how friction works, using objects from the supply closet. She had them rub their hands together, feel the warmth, and then compare how different surfaces, smooth, rough, etc., responded to sliding motion. Their laughter and loud, "Whoa!" exclamations resonated through the hallway. She felt a swell of triumph. Here she was, guiding them in hands-on learning, watching their eyes light up with curiosity. That was what she had dreamed of when imagining her own classroom. Lively engagement, enthralled expressions, and that intangible magic that happens when young minds discover something new. In the final half hour, Violet proposed an artistic reflection activity on the day. She provided crayons, colored pencils, and markers from the supply shelves, telling them, "Let's draw a little picture or write a small poem about one thing you discovered or liked about today." She did not expect to be so deeply moved by their responses. One drew a large sun shining over a chalkboard with the words, "I love learning with Miss Harper," written in childlike scrawl. Another drew friends playing outside on the playground with the teacher figure smiling from the sidelines. Others scribbled simpler sentiments like, I had fun with my new teacher. Each small act of creativity felt like an affirmation that her presence in their lives might matter. It was near the end of the day when Violet suggested a short read aloud. She pulled a picture book from a shelf, an uplifting story about a girl who overcomes shyness through the help of kind classmates. She saw immediate engagement as the children gathered around, some sitting cross-legged on a small rug, their gazes fixed on the illustrations while Violet read in a measured, expressive tone. She employed her best teacher voice, the one that soared and dipped with the narrative, breathing life into each character. By the time she turned the final page, a hush settled over the group, broken only by the squeak of sneakers on the polished floor. When the dismissal bell rang, Violet stood by the door, heart fluttering in a mix of relief and gratitude. The children filed out, some humming or giggling, others a bit tired after the long day. A few offered goodbyes. Lacey hopped up to Violet and said, You read that story so good, Ms. Harper. I can't wait for tomorrow. Vicente caught her eye and gave her a thumbs up, like a silent promise of approval. Then came Damon. He paused before leaving, looking at the floor, scuffing his shoe. Finally, he reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of notebook paper. He handed it over wordlessly. Violet took it as gently as possible, offering a quiet thanks. Damon didn't reply. He just looked up once, a flash of warmth in his eyes, and walked out. Alone now, Violet carefully unfolded the note. In a shaky pencil scrawl were the words, Thanks for being our teacher. A stick figure with long wavy hair and a big smile stood next to Damon's smaller stick figure. She couldn't help but let a tear escape. Honestly, she had been the one to thank them. That evening, after tidying up the classroom, Violet replayed the day's events in her mind. She stacked papers and placed them in her top drawer, making sure all was ready for the next morning. Before flicking off the lights, she paused by the whiteboard. Her eyes lingered on the spot where that welcoming note had been taped. That small gesture, along with Damon's scribbled message and the children's drawings, filled the room with a sense of home. With each passing moment, the school no longer felt foreign. Rather, it felt like a place of her own, a place where she belonged. She walked to the faculty parking lot, reflecting under the candy-colored sky as the sun dipped low. Tomorrow might bring new challenges. A child struggling to read, a meltdown over a misplaced lunchbox, or a disruption that tests her patience. And of course, Violet recognized that not every day would feel so triumphant. Yet the first day had been more than she'd dared hope. She felt deeply assured that she had indeed found something precious here. A new start, a group of young minds open to her presence, and a supportive staff who seemed to care. She tucked away each of these realizations into her heart, treasuring them as a shield against self-doubt. The next morning, Violet woke without the knot of anxiety that had plagued her. She arrived slightly earlier, wanting to straighten the books on the shelves, ready new name tags for anyone who might have lost theirs, and place a small welcome note on each desk. She placed the plush bulldog on the corner of her desk, thinking that she might introduce it as a class mascot today. She rehearsed her plan in her mind. Start with morning announcements and a short game, then ease into a math lesson that she had painstakingly prepared. As the children arrived, the warm greetings and giggles confirmed that the mood had shifted overnight. They recognized her now, and she recognized them. As they settled into their seats, she called for attention. I want to thank all of you for an amazing first day, Violet began. I was nervous, but getting to know you made it so much better. I truly believe we're going to have a fantastic year together. A murmur of agreement spread throughout the class, some nodding, others grinning. Damon caught her eye again from the corner, and she rewarded his small smile with one of her own. In that tiny moment, she realized that teaching was about forging connections. Through lesson plans, yes, but also through meaningful gestures of kindness and small, subtle acts of understanding. Her own jitters had not entirely vanished. They had simply been overshadowed by a sense of purpose stronger than her fears. The second day turned out to be just as filled with joys and challenges as she had expected. Yet the struggles felt manageable, and the triumphs, however small, felt volcanic in their power to remind her why she had chosen this path. By the time the final bell rang, Violet once again found herself quietly lingering in the classroom, tidying up, rearranging desks, and reflecting on a day well spent. She ran a finger along the edges of the children's artwork that now adorned a small bulletin board. Somehow, those doodles established this place as a second home, not just for her students, but for Violet herself. In a matter of days, it became a kind of tradition that she would remain behind after the last child left, basking in the stillness of the classroom, absorbing the day's lessons. Each time she recalled their curious faces, saw the scribbled notes, or felt a tug at the heartstrings when a child gingerly presented her with a lopsided drawing, Violet experienced again that undeniable sense that she belonged. Though she had begun this journey terrified she might fail, the unwavering hope and open-hearted generosity of her students gave her courage. Looking back, Violet still remembered how that first morning's walk through the doors of East Ridge Elementary felt like her future balanced precariously on a new pair of shoes. Now, at the end of her first week, she recognized that the timidness had melted under the glow of acceptance. The children's enthusiasm and small kindnesses had welcomed her in ways no amount of training could ever quite prepare her for. It was clear she and her students had formed a bond that went beyond mere name tags. Day by day, their classrooms would be filled with answered questions, unbridled laughter, and even the occasional tears that brought them closer. Violet felt certain she had found her place, and although she might still get that twinge of nervous energy every morning, her time would be spent looking forward, planning lessons that sparked curiosity, and nurturing the simple, extraordinary connections that only happen in a classroom. She no longer worried so much about impending tests or administrative concerns. Instead, she focused on the shining faces before her, eager to discover everything she had to share. By the start of the second Monday, Violet walked into the school with a fresh bounce in her step. Autumn was giving gentle hints in the breeze, the leaves beginning to turn golden. Reaching her classroom, she was greeted by a few students who had arrived early. They were helping each other with backpacks and discussing something in excited whispers. At the sight of their new teacher, two of them rushed over, exclaiming, "We're putting up October leaves, Miss Harper. We want the whole classroom to have them." Violet knelt down to meet their height, her heart brimmed with gratitude. "That's lovely. We can decorate together," she replied. Then, covertly, she placed a small box of colorful paper leaves and tape on the nearest table. A spontaneous arts and crafts plan formed in her mind with the potential to bond them further. This was how Violet Harper found her footing in the school. One genuine gesture, one lesson, and one fleeting smile at a time. In the place where, weeks before, her nerves had made each step feel uncertain, she now discovered a sense of belonging as firm as the walls around her. It was, after all, the simple, powerful truth about teaching. While lesson plans and curriculum guides serve a purpose, the heart of it lies in creating a space where children and teacher alike feel safe to explore, to be who they are, and to grow together. And so each day, as Violet continued to guide this group of children, she also allowed herself to be guided. In their bright eyes, she saw acceptance. In their tender acts of kindness, like a note on the board or a child returning to say thank you, she found reassurance. Little by little, her fears dissolved, replaced by the transformative power of community, trust, and mutual appreciation. Yes, she had found her new home in that third grade classroom, and each child in it had welcomed her there with open hearts,